Hello, everyone. Good morning. Buenos dias. Hello and welcome to Travels with Tulsans, sponsored by the Friends of the Tulsa City County Libraries. My name is Doris Degner Foster, and we're glad to have you join us for the first of our 8 2024 Travels with Tulsans presentations. We want to say thank you to the Rhodes Regional Library for staff for coming to our rescue when we had scheduling conflicts at Central. If you would like more information about becoming a friend of Tulsa City County Libraries, please pick up one of the Friends membership forms on the counter. Marion is pointing right there. We would love to have you join us in supporting our 5-star Tulsa library system. Be sure to be with us next week when Claude Bowles will take us on his tour of the Gettysburg battlefield, including the Eisenhower Historical Site. Our traveler today, sharing cruising the Eastern Mediterranean, Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, is our own TCCL liaison, Tara Farrar. Tara Farrar has worked in nonprofits for nearly 20 years and joined TCCL in 2016 as the support liaison to the Friends of the Library. She's done a little bit of everything, but her oddest job was working as a page on the Dr. Phil show. When she's not at work, you might find her perusing antique stores, watching films, or enjoying a road trip to an interesting destination. Please join me in welcoming Tara Farrar.
All right, thank you, Doris, and thank you everyone for coming today. I can't believe they talked me into doing this 2 years in a row, but some of you may have been at my talk on Japan for the last series. So this past June, my husband and I took a trip to the Eastern Mediterranean on a cruise, and it was the first time cruising for the both of us. So we learned a lot and had a really wonderful time. If you cruise, you know there's a whole culture and ecosystem around cruising that we knew nothing about. I'm kind of curious, how many of you have done an ocean cruise? Quite a few. And what about a river cruise? And anyone who has never cruised before? All right, so you're all in my boat. All right, so we went for 7 nights. We had 5 stops and a couple extra days as well in Israel, which is where our cruise left out of. Feel very fortunate that we were able to do this trip. When we did, you can see we left here out of Haifa, Israel, which is the northern part of the island. Too many islands. Northern part of the country. And my heart goes out to everyone who is affected by the war there right now. And you can see here, a lot of times when people are thinking of the Greek islands, they're thinking of the blue and white houses of the Cyclades, but of course there are a lot of island groups. There are over 200 inhabited Greek islands. And a cruise is a convenient and efficient way to get around, but it's not the only way. You could also ferry between the islands, and some of them have airports as well that you could fly into. So, but a cruise was a convenient option for us. So our first stop was the island of Cyprus, and Cyprus is a republic with its own president. So it is not a part of Greece, but about 75% of the inhabitants are Greek Cypriots. Greek is the primary language, and most of the others are Turkish. And actually, I did not know this before we went there, but Turkey is a divided island. You can see on the map here, Cyprus there, the 2 slightly different colors of yellow. So in 1974, Turkey invaded Cyprus and annexed off the northern portion of the island. It's still like that today. There's a border crossing there. And we were in the southern portion of the island. No other world government recognizes that this land belongs to Turkey other than Turkey. So it is considered an occupation. We were in the southern portion in the city of Limassol. Limassol is a fairly large metropolitan city, but it does have a historic old town, which is where we are here. And you can see the lace shop. Cyprus is known for its lace. And this blocky building here is the Limassol Castle. And this is where it said that Richard the Lionheart was married during the Crusades. So we strolled the streets, picked up some treats, including some lukumi or Cyprus delights. If you're in Turkey, they're Turkish delights, but if you're on Cyprus, they're Cyprus delights. So something you definitely got to grab if you're on Cyprus. And we went a little off the main street and ate at this restaurant here called Carmela. This was an Israeli restaurant. Obviously, we're still pretty close to Israel here on Cyprus, and had this bareka, which is a bread that's filled with cheese. And then all the accompaniments here, the hard-boiled egg, which a lot of times you'll see that just baked right into the top of the bareka, and some shug, which is too spicy for me, and yogurt and salsa. This was really good. We had a really nice, relaxing lunch here. So we visited the ancient city of Kourion. The most famous site on Cyprus is probably Paphos, and some of that has to do with the fact that it is mentioned as a place that the Apostle Paul visited. But Kourion also is a very important city. There are expansive ruins here, a really nice archaeological park. You can see it sits right on the Mediterranean. And a lot of the structures you can still see here are from around the 1st to 4th century AD. But there was some earthquakes that hit Cyprus in the 4th century and destroyed a lot of the city. It continued to be inhabited though, and they're not really sure why the city was abandoned at some point. Still some columns standing, and then the bathhouse. And this was just one section of the bathhouse. There's a whole nother chamber. And I don't remember exactly how these terracotta tiles that are stacked up function, but it had to do with keeping the water warm. There's also a system of aqueducts in the city, underneath the city. Like Paphos, Kourion has a lot of really well-preserved mosaics. And this would have been the home of one of the wealthiest men in Kourion, as you can probably tell by the view that he had. And also that he had the money to put in all of these really elaborate mosaic floors. There's also an ancient amphitheater at Kourion, and this has been completely restored. You can probably see there some of the lights, so they still put on performances here, which would have been really neat to see there with the Mediterranean as your backdrop. And the engineering of these is just so incredible. Our tour guide is actually down demonstrating how you can stand on the orchestra there and talk in a normal speaking voice and hear it all the way up at the top. So a lot of people are down trying that out. I definitely recommend, if you do go to Limassol, to visit Kourion. If you want to go to Paphos, it's a couple hours drive each way, but Kourion is only about a 20-minute drive from Limassol, so it's really convenient. This was also the only tour that we ended up doing with the cruise ship. And about halfway between Kourion and Limassol is Colossi Castle. And this was the headquarters of the Knights Hospitaller, or the Knights of the Order of St. John, when they were on Cyprus before they moved on to Rhodes. And they were a Catholic military order. The Knights Templar would have been the other big similar group of the time. And this is empty now, but you can go inside. If you can see, there is someone all the way up at the top on the ramparts. It's kind of giving me Monty Python and the Holy Grail vibes up there. They did not yell anything down to us. So we had a very nice day on Cyprus. And our next stop was the island of Rhodes. famous for being the home to one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Colossus of Rhodes. I wanted to give a little bit more historical context for this area. You do not have to know this to go and enjoy a visit there. And disclaimer, I'm not a historian. But you will see these influences on the culture and the architecture, so I think it's interesting. The timeline here is specific to Israel, and it's got most of the major dates. Starting up at the top, you can see there the Roman Empire, which lasts up to 324. And then you have the start of the Byzantine era, where Christianity expands in the area. That lasts up until 638. I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to see that on my picture here that I have. 638, and runs until 1099. And so then you have Islam spreading in the area, which kind of directly results in the start of the Crusades. All right, so the Crusades last from 1099 to 1291. And then from 1291 up until 1517, in the area that is now Israel, you have the Mamluks. So you can see this map here is a snapshot of the Eastern Mediterranean in 1450 AD. You also have a large swath of land that's controlled by the Ottoman Empire, and then a few smaller territories like the Venetians in the green there on the island of Crete. And then you have the Knights of St. John on Rhodes, and a few holdouts of the Byzantine Empire. And then Ottoman Empire, of course, expands its territory, and that lasts all the way up until 1917. Can we get some lights? Yeah, I think we can see the screen okay. So you can also get a sense too for why there is still conflict in this area. There's been so much political change. All right, so we visited the city of Rhodes on the island of Rhodes, and there's a beautiful harbor and marina here. You can walk along the old city walls. We've got these big, beautiful windmills that line the waterfront. More photos of the marina. You can see the palace there in the background, and we'll get there later. The fort of St. Nicholas sitting here at the end of the harbor. And then we've got the spot that marks where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood, but probably not. I think it's pretty much agreed upon that it did not straddle the harbor. You can see there's the columns here on either side of the harbor with the statue of the deer at the top, but most people pretty much accept that it did not straddle the harbor. And it only stood for about 50 years before it got toppled in an earthquake. So you can walk back through sections of the old walls. You can walk up on the fortifications. And here we are back inside the city walls. Got the center square there. Lots and lots of shops. You could probably spend days just walking down all of the streets and into the shops. Just walking through the city. And here we are at the Palace of the Grand Master. So this was the headquarters for the Knights Hospitaller from the 1300s up until the 1500s, when they lost the island to Suleiman the Magnificent. You can see they were setting up for a performance in the courtyard later that day. But just these huge, massive rooms, tall timbered ceilings, giant fireplaces. I think I was just in awe and did not get very many pictures inside. And then this is the staircase that you enter and exit out of. And I don't think this picture even captures how enormous this is. You can tell it would be quite intimidating to anyone who was coming to visit the palace. But when you leave, you are dropped out onto the Street of Knights, which is a famous medieval street. It's been very well preserved. You can kind of wander the alleys. And then this building here with the spheres that are stacked up, that is the Archaeological Museum of Rhodes. So if you're at the palace, you can get a combo ticket for just a few euros more that gets you admission into 3 different sites. We didn't quite know what we'd have time for, so we went ahead and got the combo. So it was nice to be able to just walk in here, wander around a little bit. And this building was the hospital of the Knights of St. John. And then, of course, a leather shop. Leather work, very popular in Greece. You got to come home with some leather from Greece, which we did. And then a popular photo spot here in front of the ruins of this church. Then we had lunch at this restaurant called Nemos, a picture perfect Greek taverna with the blue and white checked tablecloths. And something I've started doing is making a list on Google Maps of restaurants, shops, sites before I visit. So we've kind of vetted some places ahead of time. In Greece, and especially on Rhodes, there will be a lot of touts trying to get you to come into the restaurants and shops. They can be kind of aggressive. So it's good if you know where you're going already and don't get sucked into a tourist trap. It's also really good just to save time if you have a limited amount of time like we did at each place. And we had this Greek sampler platter for 2. It was enormous. When they brought it out, we didn't think we would be able to eat it all, but we devoured it. So we knocked out a lot of Greek specialties all at once. We've got some moussaka and pasticcio. You can see those kind of 2 lasagna-looking dishes. The dolmas, the stuffed grape leaves, some stewed beef, the traditional meatballs, the giant beans and tomatoes, some garlic bread. This was really, really good. So I think my husband and I both kind of agreed, maybe in total, that Rhodes was our favorite stop of the trip. So if you are planning a Greek islands trip, I would definitely include Rhodes. Next stop was Athens. And the port in Athens is actually in Piraeus, which was about a 20-minute drive into the city center. And we were total tourists and took the hop on, hop off bus. But that really is the most convenient way and a pretty inexpensive way to get into the city center from the port. It picks up right in front of the cruise ships. So that was handy. Maybe $13 for a ticket that lasts you the whole day, that you can hop on, hop off during the whole day. So that's what we did. And the first stop we hit was the Acropolis Museum. The Acropolis, the #1 attraction in Athens. So we spent some time exploring the exhibits here in the museum. There are some really nice videos you can watch that give you context for seeing the Acropolis and what it would have looked like. And you can see the caryatids here. These are some of the originals being preserved in the museum. The ones up at the Acropolis are replicas. And here we are going in through the south slope entrance into the Acropolis. And I bought our tickets for the museum and the Acropolis ahead of time so that we were able to skip the lines. There were quite long lines. And I read recently that just within the last few months, I think they've started requiring timed entry into the Acropolis. So if you want to go now, you're pretty much going to have to purchase your tickets in advance. So that is something good to know. And I had also read that this was an easy way to go up, a steady incline. I would not say that that was the case. We were definitely huffing and puffing by the time we got to the top. But you do see some things you can't quite see from up at the top, like the Theater of Dionysus here. So it can be a good way to go up or come back down. All right, we did make it to the top. And there were more steps. And then, of course, you can see as you enter the Parthenon there, the Temple of Athena, coming in through the main entryway here. And you can see a lot of the sections where they've made repairs or stabilized it, all of those areas in the lighter white. And the Parthenon, again, always under some state of conservation. So don't know that you'll ever see it without any scaffolding on it. And something interesting, you all may know this, but a lot of these structures at the time and Greek statuary all would have been painted. So this probably would have been a lot of bright colors and gold. You can walk around the hill. Here's a view of the Parthenon again from the backside, and the Erechtheion there. You can see the caryatids, the replicas. And then you got these great views out into Athens. This is Lycabettus Hill. That's the highest point in Athens. And there's a funicular that you can take up to the top if you want to do that. I had to get a selfie, just prove that I was there. I like to call this Acropolis cat. And then you've also got views out onto Mars Hill or Areopagus Hill, where all the philosophers debated and people were put on trial. You can see a lot of people have climbed up to the top of that. Across from the Acropolis Museum, we ate at this little restaurant that was supposed to have some of the best Greek pies in Athens. And we had a cheese pie and a mushroom pie. They were really good. And then they also serve like cafeteria style, just homemade items, whatever they've made that day. Some women sat down next to us and their food smelled so good. I kind of wish we'd gotten more than just the pies, but you gotta try the pie when you're in Greece. Something really popular to do, especially with just a day in Athens, is walk around Plaka, which is the neighborhood surrounding the Acropolis. There are lots of shops and restaurants. You get this great view up to the Acropolis. You can see why they would have revered that site, just the way it looms over the city everywhere you are. These are some famous steps in Athens. It's all lined with these cafes. A lot of people out enjoying the day. We ate at this place all the way up at the very top. You can see the views of Lycabettus Hill again there. And we've got some Freddo cappuccinos, which is their version of an iced coffee. You'll see that on most of the menus. And then some orange cake, which was so good. You have to have the orange cake in Greece. Amazing. And it looks like ice cream on there, but that's yogurt. And then a really popular dish, this is feta that's been wrapped in phyllo and fried with sesame seeds and honey. I thought I would actually like this more, but it is a brick of feta. So you have to love feta. You might notice too that when you order a Greek salad there's no lettuce involved in that. It's just the chunks of vegetables and olives, and then they'll set a brick of feta on the top. And that is a true Greek salad. And a good terminating point if you're walking around Plaka is Monastiraki Square. So that's where we are here. Again, views up to the Acropolis. This bottom picture, that is Hadrian's library. And then this couple that's a little bit precariously sitting below a lot of pigeons. So from here, you can kind of wander back through Plaka, which is what we did. And we stopped into the Metropolitan Church of Athens, or the Metropolis. This is a really important Greek Orthodox church, the main one in Athens. And these Greek Orthodox churches are just so beautiful. You definitely have to stop into some of them. You can just see here how beautiful these are. So we made it on the double-decker bus back to the port. This was our sunset view over Athens. From our ship. Really nice way to cap off our day in Athens. All right, the next stop was Santorini, somewhere I've always wanted to go, me and everyone else. So there will be crowds on Santorini. You cannot avoid the crowds, but you know, a lot of places that get to be really popular are popular for a reason. And I don't think Santorini is an exception, but you do have to have realistic expectations of what it's going to be like there. So Santorini sits on the top of a caldera of a volcano, which is what makes it unique. And to get up to the top, traditionally, you would either have to walk or take a donkey. And they kind of frown upon taking the donkeys now because of how they're treated, but they do still operate and you can smell them. I'm kind of curious if anyone has taken the donkeys. No, okay. But there is a cable car now that you can take to get to the top. And I recommend doing what we did, especially if there are multiple ships docking at the same time, is to get up early and get the earliest tender ticket you can possibly get, so you don't end up in a really long line waiting for the cable car. We had kind of a hiccup here. The tenders got going late because of choppy water, and we missed the start of the tour that we had booked. Us and a lot of other people, there were a lot of panicked faces on the ships of everyone who was missing their tours, but I was able to get a hold of the tour operator and see if we could join up with them later, and they said we could. So when you get to the top of the cable car, you are in Farrar, and you can see the gorgeous whitewashed houses and churches and all of the crowds. I'm doing my best actually to avoid the crowds, but just imagine there are people all around me as I'm taking these. So because we were joining up with our tour a little bit later, that meant we had time to have a nice relaxing breakfast, which was a bonus. We ate at this place called Ab Fab. It was pretty fab, but it's near the cable car, but it's kind of tucked up away up a little stairwell. And so it was really quiet and peaceful. You can see there's views out to the water on the other side of the island. And we had this yogurt with fruit and honey. I don't know how something so simple can be so delicious. This was really good. We also had a really good omelet and crepe. So nice breakfast on Santorini. And then we were able to meet up with our tour group. It was just a small group of 8 people, which was really nice. Our first official stop was here at the 3 Bells of Farrar, which is a really popular photo viewpoint on Santorini here with the blue dome. You can also see out onto the next city over, which is Vigli, and that rock outcropping there is Scaros Rock. And way off in the distance there, you can see the town of Ia, which is another really popular place that people like to stay and also watch the sunset on Santorini. Something I didn't know is that the blue and white is relatively new to the islands. So around the early 20th century, people started painting their homes with lime because they thought it protected them from diseases. And it wasn't until the 1970s, there was a coup in Greece, and the dictator who took over demanded that everyone paint their homes white and blue. Of course, out of a sense of nationalism and patriotism, the blue and white representing the colors of the Greek flag. So that is when that became really widespread on the islands. It's no longer required, but most people do keep them blue and white. We took a very narrow winding road up to the highest point on the island. This is the Prophet Elias Monastery. And the monks there have a little stand where they sell canned goods and crafts to make money for the monastery. There's a little chapel there. But from here, you can see out onto most of the island. So you can see here, this is the inner rim of the caldera. You can see where the cruise ships are parked there. And off in the distance, Ia again. Then we went to the town of Megalochori, which is one of the smaller villages on the island. A lot less people than in Farrar. Really nice. I definitely recommend if you're on Santorini to get out to some of the smaller villages. You get a completely different feel for the island. This is a popular photo spot here, this image with the bells. Or the blue and white. I love this one here with the satellite dish and the talisman on their door. Also in Megalochori, you can visit one of these traditional cave houses. So these are the traditional dwellings on Santorini. Many of them have been converted into guest houses and hotels. That's where people like to stay on Santorini. There was a huge earthquake that hit Santorini in 1956 that destroyed a lot of the buildings. So many of them are newer, but this was interesting to go and hear the one that's never been updated or renovated, no electricity, and see what life would have been like on the island back then. And you can see there too that not all of the buildings are white. We visited also in Megalokori, this place called the Symposium, and this is a Greek musical center. They put on performances with traditional Greek musical instruments. The performance that day had already happened, but you can see this was just a really magical place to sit and relax for a bit. We had included in our tour, we could order a drink from their little cafe menu and anything else that we wanted to from their cafe. So we ordered these mastic lemonades. So mastic is a resin that's native to Greece, and it's used as a chewing gum and digestive aid, but now they use it to flavor a lot of things, foods, alcohol. I've heard the notes described as pine. I got a little of that and also a little bit of spearmint. So it was a nice compliment to the lemonade. And they brought our checkout in this little knit shell. I think this is the most charming thing I've ever seen. And inside, this is the owner, and we had seen him gathering some reeds outside, and we were wondering what he was doing. But one of the families who had come to the musical performance earlier was coming back, and the son was going to get to make his own pan flute. So he was getting ready for them to show up and gather these freshly gathered dried reeds that he had outside. So we got to chat with him for a little bit. That was really neat. The tour dropped us back in Farrar. We did some shopping. We employed a trick that we did at several places, which was to go and eat at an off time. So you can get into places that are normally really busy or you need a reservation for, like this restaurant. This is about 4 o'clock, which is a very, very early dinner in Greece. So we were able to walk right in. And we had a couple of Santorini specialties. You'll see these on menus around Greece, but supposedly they originated on Santorini. And that is these tomato fritters, which were really good. And then fava bean dip with some pickled onions and capers, the pita bread. If you like split peas, you would like this. I thought it was really yummy. So everyone, when they go to Santorini, they want to watch the sunset, usually from one of the cliffside bars or restaurants. I actually thought being on the ship and getting to see out over the whole caldera was a really nice way to watch the sunset. And you can see a little bit better view there at the top of that zigzag trail where the donkeys go up. And more views out to Scaros Rock. Again, just another great way to cap off our day. All right, our next stop, to our surprise, was Crete. And we were supposed to go to Mykonos. We actually did go to Mykonos. Again, though, there were very high winds that day, and the captain had determined that it would not be safe for us to disembark. And so it took a little while to get an announcement of where they might be taking us instead. But we eventually heard we'd be going to Hania, Crete. And it didn't take all that long to get there. We ended up with a port of call of around 1 to 9 p.m., which was not too bad. Of course, we didn't know anything about Crete. And there's no opportunity for excursions then if they make a change like that to the itinerary. But thankfully, the kind of main thing that people do in Hania is visit the old historic city center, which you can see here. And there's just a bus from the port that you could take into the city center for a few euros. A lot of people taking horse and carriage rides through the city. And then this is part of the old Byzantine wall of Hania. And then the main attraction, the old Venetian port of Hania. With all the brightly colored buildings, you can really see the Venetian influence. A lot of people just out enjoying the water. There's my husband and I again attempting another selfie. I don't have very many pictures of us because we are not good at selfies. So. People taking horse and carriages again. The whole port is lined with restaurants and shops. I don't know if you can see at the top, the driver there is holding a baby. Can you guys see that? I don't know if that is his baby or the passenger's baby, but anyway. And then this is the Venetian lighthouse. The port and the break were constructed in the 1300s by the Venetians. And then this older gentleman was just out doing some fishing. There's also an old mosque on the port. This is now used as an art center, but it was really striking. And then some more views out on the lighthouse and the port as the light was kind of changing. And we needed to find some place to eat. We settled on this restaurant called Colombo, which was just on this perfect European alleyway. You couldn't find a cuter place to eat, I don't think. And had a really good meal. So good, I had to devote an entire slide to it. But my husband had this is not a super traditional Cretan restaurant, but my husband had this roasted pork belly with a grape glaze. And then at the top, that is grilled Minori cheese with a chutney. Minori is a byproduct of making feta, so it's a little bit milder. I really enjoyed that. And then this pasta, that was maybe the best pasta I've ever had. It had a paki, which is the Cretan smoked pork, and some mushrooms and chicken, just really good. And then pretty common in Greece, to end your meal, they'll bring out a complimentary aperitif and a little dessert or fruit. A lot of times it'll be ouzo, which is a licorice flavored liqueur. This was a mastic liqueur. But this was a nice way to cap off our meal. And my husband even said it was serendipitous that we ended up on Crete instead of Mykonos because we got to eat. But it was probably our favorite meal of the trip. From Crete, we had just a one sea day, which was nice. It was nice to be able to relax and kind of recuperate before we hit land again. So these photos from Israel are actually from the start of our trip. We had about a day and a half before our cruise left to spend in Israel. Again, feel very fortunate that we were able to go when we did. Hopefully it will be safe to travel there again sometime in the not too distant future. But there are challenges to traveling in Israel even when there is not conflict there. The security getting in and out of the airport, you need to give yourself extra time at the airport. Also, just to get to the gate, we flew out of Newark. There was additional security checks at the gate. We had to get wanded again, have our bags checked again, just to go and sit at the gate. So that was something I hadn't experienced before. And then you may also know that they do not stamp your passport when you go to Israel out of safety. So you get a little paper entry they have to keep on you while you're in the country. But here we are in Jerusalem. And this is the main train station in Jerusalem. This is at street level. So this is a very unique train station in that it has one of the lowest train platforms in the world. It is hundreds and hundreds of feet down. They had to build it that way to get the proper grading from the airport, but the side effect is that this is a bunker. So when you come out on the platform, you go up 3 sets of the tallest escalators I've ever seen. And at each level, you can see you are in a dome with huge, massive steel doors at each level. So this can be closed off and used as a bomb shelter. The short time we were there, we used the trains, the light rail, the buses, and the taxis. The public transportation in Israel was really good. You just get their transportation card called a Ravkov and load that with the kind of ticket you need. There's also a couple of apps that you can download to be able to call taxis. And so we used that, and that was really convenient. Here we are at the David Gate. This is where we entered the old city of Jerusalem. And we just took a free tour that's offered by this company called Abraham Tours. They do a lot of tours around Israel, and they offer this one free to kind of get people's interest in doing some of their other tours. It happens a couple times a day. and it starts at the Jaffa Gate, which is where we are here. It's good to note that the old city of Jerusalem that you see now is not what the boundaries would have been of Jerusalem like in the 1st century. And most of this current wall was built by Suleiman the Magnificent in the 1500s. So there are various groups that claim important sites. Much of that is speculation. Case in point, here we are in the Armenian quarter. So the old city is divided into 4 quarters. There's the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Armenian quarter, and the Christian quarter. And this photo here with the flags and the door there, that is the place that Armenians claim is the upper room of the New Testament. The Armenian quarter also has a curfew, and they actually lock it up at night, which is unique to that quarter. And then here we are in the Jewish quarter. This lower level here below street level is near the excavated area of the old Roman Cardo or marketplace. So I think like a lot of ancient cities like Rome, they just kept building levels on top of each other. And then of course the Western Wall here, very important site for Jews. And you can see also the gold of the Dome of the Rock there at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Close-up view of the Western Wall. You can go down to the plaza. You don't have to be Jewish. We opted not to, just kind of out of respect. You can see this here is the men's section. There's a men's section and a women's section. You can just see the women's section off on the far side of the photograph there. So women do have to have their elbows and knees completely covered. Men need a head covering. And apparently they have some paper ones that they'll give you if you don't have one. And very near the Western Wall is the Muslim quarter. So here we are walking through the souk or the marketplace. Lots of winding streets and alleys, very easy to get lost. We actually did. We got turned around by armed guards at one point. But if you want to do some shopping here, just make sure you know the currency exchange rate. They use the Israeli shekel, or you have a currency converter on you as you're shopping. And then we stumbled on this little cafe in the Muslim quarter. We had ditched the tour at this point. The tour was very good, but they were having a heat wave, and we were dressed very conservatively, and we were really hot and really tired. So we popped into this cafe and had just the most incredible hummus and falafel and homemade pita and olives. This was a really nice find in the Muslim quarter, and you can see the building is a really old building, kind of cave-like structure there, the stone walls. We took a bus up to the Mountain of Olives, and you can get viewpoints again out over the old city in the Dome of the Rock. There is a Jewish cemetery now that sits on the Mount of Olives that has a lot of famous rabbis and politicians buried there. And when we were there, there was something going on. I'm not sure if it was a funeral or it could have been the anniversary of someone's death. I'm not sure, but you can see there are probably a couple hundred Orthodox men down there. More views out over Jerusalem. It looks really hazy, and that's actually because there was a fire burning. We could see the smoke off in the distance, not really sure what was going on, but that was why it looked so hazy that day. So from here, we made our way back to the train station and picked up our luggage that we had put in lockers there. And we stayed the evening in Tel Aviv, and that was for the convenience of getting a train to Haifa to leave for the cruise. And we stayed in the area near the Carmel Market, which is a famous outdoor market in Tel Aviv. And we also had plans to go to the Jaffa neighborhood where there's a famous flea market and waterfront, but again, we were tired. So we decided to have a more leisurely morning near our hotel. Tel Aviv is known for its graffiti. It's also known for its Bauhaus architecture, which you might not expect. It's nicknamed the White City. There are over 4,000 Bauhaus and Bauhaus-inspired buildings in Tel Aviv. And that has to do with the fact that in the 1930s, when German Jews were being forced out of Germany and resettling in Palestine, many of them had been trained in the Bauhaus school. So that's how those buildings popped up. And then this wall with a graffiti here, that is the entrance into our boutique hotel that we stayed in. All the rooms as well had a graffiti all over the ceiling and stuff. And so we walked across the street from our hotel to this cafe called Cafe Birnbaum and had a traditional Israeli breakfast. So we got shakshuka and some Israeli salad, and then all the accompaniments that they bring out with it. There's tuna fish and olives, yogurt, eggplant dip, some tahini butter, and there are a few sweet things that we couldn't quite identify, but everything was really tasty. Some really, really good coffee as well. We spent some time exploring the Carmel market. So this was just a local market where people would come out and get their goods for the week. Lots of fruits and vegetables, spices. You can see the halva and a bunch of other goodies here. And then twice a week, right next to the market is a craft market, the Nachalat Binyamin craft market. And we happened to be there on one of the days when that was happening. So we got to walk around that. And we purchased this art here from an artist of one of the Bauhaus buildings called The Ship in Tel Aviv. And you can see also sitting right next to the market in Nachalat Binyamin is this hotel, which was built in 1934, one of the Bauhaus buildings. That's just a clip here, kind of panning around. So that was just a little bit from our short time in Israel. Much, much more to see there. And like I said, hopefully it will be safer to travel there again soon. Yes.
What is the word you're saying that sounds like Bauhaus? And it's spelled
Bauhaus. B-A-U-H-A-U-S. Architecture. Yeah, it's a German architecture style. Yeah. And all right, so I thought I've already gone over time. We had a little technical break there. So I thought I might talk a little bit about some of the things I learned as a first-time cruiser, but I don't think we'll have time for that. Well, we can come back to some of this if you want to. But I thought we might open it up just if anyone has any questions for me about the trip, or also if anyone has any of your best cruise tips or a favorite cruise that you've taken, and we can all get ideas of where we're going to go next. All right, yeah, Nancy. We went in June. So we went at the very first part of June, trying to avoid some of the crowds after school had gotten out, and also the heat. It was still kind of warm, but it was pleasant in most places. Any other questions? Yeah.
Were you shooting with a camera or was it with your phone?
This is with my camera. Yeah. So I have a Micro Four Thirds camera system, which is kind of a lightweight version of a DSLR that I like to travel with. It takes really good pictures.
Great photograph.
Oh, thank you.
If you were to take that cruise again, what would you do?
So I actually really liked this itinerary. Of course, obviously right now it is very difficult to travel out of Israel. I think there are still some cruises departing from Haifa. It is in the northern part of the country, away from the conflict. But you know, Athens and Rome are a couple of the other popular ports where they leave. I loved all of the stops on this itinerary for sure. The main thing really for me is just not knowing anything about cruising and being able to plan our schedule a little bit better, not knowing that, okay, the published times, that's not the time that you're actually on shore. That's just the time that the boat is docked. I didn't know that. So like I would still do the independent tours. I know some people say only do the cruise ship excursions, but I think you can if you plan carefully. But I would probably be more likely to do the cruise ship ones at a tender port, just with the problems that we had not going to Mykonos, although thankfully that tour operator, I was able to call them from guest services on the ship, and since it was weather related, they refunded us right away. And also, in Santorini, they let us join up with the tour. Of course, if we had been on the ship one, we would have got the entire tour that the people once, because they were the first people to get off the tenders, the people who had booked a cruise ship excursion. So that's probably something that I would keep in mind doing another one. So yes. Yeah, so we only scheduled 3 out of the 6 places that we went, 5 on the tour plus getting around Israel, we just did on our own. I thought that was totally fine. It just depends on what the port of call is and what there is to do there, and how easy it is to get around and how much time. So Santorini, I knew we had a limited amount of time. I really wanted to do an organized tour there. So you're not waiting on buses and other ways to get around. But we did Rhodes just on our own. We obviously Crete we had to do on our own because there weren't any excursions. And Athens we did completely on our own as well. So any other, yes, Robin. We used Royal Caribbean, and I definitely would use Royal Caribbean again. The customer service was really, really good. I think I had some misconceptions maybe about cruising, but I found the customer service was really good. Everyone was really friendly. Every time we went to guest services, we got whatever it was resolved. And the food was good. So yeah, Royal Caribbean, and I really enjoyed it. So that's the other thing. We were on a pretty small ship compared to what a lot of the major cruise lines have now. And this is one of the older ships. It maxes out at 2,000 passengers. So it was pretty small, which again was great. It never felt really crowded, which was nice. That was something I was kind of concerned about, except for a few trips to the buffet. We actually avoided the buffet as much as we could and ate in the main dining room whenever that was open. So, oh yeah. All right, so I mean, some of the pros things I like about cruising, obviously the efficient itinerary, all your repositioning is happening overnight. So you're not spending any of your daytime hours ferrying between places. So that was handy. And then just the less planning overall. Like I said, customer service was really excellent, probably better than any hotel or restaurant I've been to in recent memory on the cruise ship. Just really, really good service. And then we went 6 places and we unpacked once, which is really nice.